Commissioner will go over on the left aisle.
Heather Dinich with ESPN. When you talk about the Big Ten and the SEC having the control over the future format, what will it take for those two leagues to come to a consensus and avoid a stalemate? And how close are you and Tony Petitti to doing that?
Well, I would never give away how close we are to doing something in a meeting. I think Tony and I spoke probably 4 out of 5 days last week. I think Jim and I either talked on the phone or communicated 3 out of 5 days last week. So we had a different view coming out of Destin around the notion of allocations, if you will. And I think you'll probably hear that again from our coaches. The Big Ten has a different view. That's fine. We have a 12-team playoff, 5 conference champions. That could stay if we can't agree. I think there's like this notion that there has to be some magic moment and something has to happen with expansion and it has to be forced. No, I think we want to use, when you're given authority, you want to be responsible in using that authority. And I think both of us are prepared to do so. And the upfront responsibility, and this may be where some of the confusion lies, is we have the ability to present a format or format ideas, gather information, see if we can all agree within that room. We don't need unanimity, and ultimately, if not, there's a level of authority granted to the Big Ten and SEC together. But there's a lot to that. It's not you just show up and pound your fist and something happens. I hope that that type of narrative can be reduced. But we'll keep talking. We all talk a lot, probably too much sometimes, right?
All right, Commissioner, we'll take one final question over to our left.
Commissioner, David Rumsey from Front Office Sports. You mentioned private equity in your opening remarks, and we know you came out against several PE-backed Super League proposals last year. Moving forward, is the SEC open to exploring any PE money or other capital injections coming into the conference?
I think there are 2 things in there. So my comments about other ideas, and they're embedded subtly, is what I've not seen is the in-depth analysis of these other ideas that's provided to our everyday operation. That's one of those disappointing realities for me. So we have to do that internally. Like how much money flows out of the college system into the financial backers? What are the ifs that are needed? If this can be achieved, and if that can be achieved, and if that can be achieved, then they might be able to achieve what they're talking about. Some of these proposals, you always see the most positive outcome. And when you ask, well, like, what's the downside of it? What if you don't hit all of those if marks, all of those mile markers? What then happens? And there's not a lot of answers provided. What we're dealing with is not like a law school class hypothesis or a finance project for somebody's MBA. This is real life. And we're seeing that happen over the last 2 weeks. So that's my observation, and just clarity on the first one. I've had those meetings. I've had outreach on a continuing basis. They bubble up from time to time. The question, what problem you're trying to solve and what's the substance of the solution? What's the downside? What if you don't achieve all of those mile markers? For us, I had a conversation with someone in our membership about outside financing ideas as late as last week. We have been probably 2.5, 3 years into visits with banks, with private equity, with venture capital. I mean, you could go down the range. Private capital, that's another phrase that's been used. That's not been the right direction for us. We've not seen the concept that works. It doesn't mean we won't consider opportunities. If there are opportunities for mutual benefit, those would pique our interest. But the notion of just jumping to something because there's a pot of money there seems an uninformed direction, and simply taking propositions where there's not the kind of clarity around what if you don't meet your high-end predictions, what's left then. I think those are things that continue to weigh heavily on our mind.